Hello dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Today I'm Abdul Momen going to discuss or conduct a class on linguistics, and the topic of linguistics will be on sociolinguistics. In my previous class I discussed psycholinguistics, and uh, from that today I'm going to conduct sociolinguistics. So dear students and viewers, I welcome again in my class, online class. So today I'm going to discuss uh, what is sociolinguistics, I mean definition, history of it, varieties of language and dialect, socio-dialect, regional dialect, register, idiolect, I mean regional dialect, already I told it, and Isogloss, prestige, Pidgin, Crayol, Diclusia, bilingualism, code switching, standard language, borrowing, and language and society, language and culture. So dear students, please stay connected with me. As I have mentioned in my previous class that what is sociolinguistics, you know that sociolinguistics is a term including the aspects of linguistics applied toward the connections between language and society and the way we use it in different social situations or aspects. It ranges from the study of the wide variety of dialects across a given region down to the analysis between the way men and women speak to one another or each other. Sociolinguistics often shows us the humorous realities of human speech and how a dialect of a given language can often describe the age, sex, and social class of the speaker. It quotes the social function of a language. So if you want to ask me that what is language, what is linguistics, what is standard language, standard English, but you know that I already have mentioned, and in my class, in the classroom, I conducted the classes that what is language, what is linguistics, what are the basic branches of language and linguistics, what are the major parts of linguistics. I have mentioned and I have conducted the classes. So today you can get the message or information that what is standard language. Yeah, so if we talk about the standard English, this is the variety which forms the basis of printed English in newspapers and books, which is books, journals, which is used in the mass media and which is taught in schools, colleges, institutions, I mean universities. And it is the variety we normally try to teach to those who want to learn English as a second language. So dear students, this is called standard language. So now we are going to discuss one by one. So dear students, firstly I would like to mention that what is sociolinguistics. As we have come to know that sociolinguistics, a branch of linguistics, studies the relationship between language and society. It helps us explore, uncover, and understand why we speak differently in various social contexts or aspects, what effects a language has on the diverse aspects of community. So no need to mention again about the sociolinguistics. So if we talk about now the brief history of sociolinguistics, you know that history, the discipline sociolinguistics dates back millenniums with basic studies conducted into Indian language variation in relation to society dating as far back as 50 BC. Humans have forever used language as a form of communication, whether spoken and written, drawn, signed, or printed. But how we were the different social norms of behavioral communication established in the first place. Sociolinguistics aims to uncover the tangible relationship between society and language through historical consideration. There is a long tradition in the general study of dialects, wrong meaning, and culture, and hence sociolinguistics is by no means a modern day phenomenon. Sociolinguistics as a science of widespread interest has a relatively modern history in regards to its sorry, this is prayer time, that's why the muezzin is preaching. Thank you to students. So sociolinguistics, I mean, we are talking about the history of sociolinguistics. Okay, so sociolinguistics as a science and widespread interest has a relatively modern history in regards to its contemporary academic study by scholars and students alike. It is a subdiscipline of linguistics began to emerge toward the end of the 18th century, and into the beginning of the 19th century it became a primary focus of linguistics as academic study, moved from the scientific approaches to the study of language of the 18th century onto a more philosophical evolutionary approach which considered the social factors affecting language. Prior to this, language was seen as a fixed entity controlled entirely by the human mind, and the social aspects of language were totally ignored. The 19th and 20th centuries brought about sociolinguistic study into dialectology, involving dialect surveys of different languages, as well as philology, involving historically comparing different languages, relying mainly on written language, culture, ideas, discoveries, and institutions which emerged in the 19th century cumulated to form sociolinguistics as we know it today. In the modern sense, it was Indian and Japanese linguists who first conducted investigations into this relationship between language and society in the 1930s. However, it was not until 1952 that the term sociolinguistics was coined in a work by Haber, who conducted an investigation into speech in relation to social status. Leboeuf and Bernstein became interested in the study in the 1960s and carried out significant scholarly research into the discipline of sociolinguistics. In the last few decades, sociolinguistics has been one of the main growth areas in the study of language from both teaching and researching perspectives. Okay, so this is the short history of sociolinguistics. Now we will talk about the varieties of language. You know that there are many varieties of language. So now we talk about the varieties of language. Language with its different varieties is the subject matter of sociolinguistics. Sociolinguistics studies the varied linguistic realizations of sociocultural meanings, which in a sense are both familiar and unfamiliar, and the occurrence of everyday social interactions which are nevertheless relative to particular cultures, societies, social groups, species, communities, languages, dialects, varieties, styles, etc. So if we talk about the varieties of language, we have to know later on part. So now it's language and dialect. So if we talk about the language and dialect, so language in general, language is a complex social phenomenon employed for interaction and communication by humans, is considered as an umbrella term that includes all the different languages of the world. But a language in a particular encompasses all its different forms and or varieties, especially in a community or territory. For example, Bengali meaning in the standard Bengali varies as well as all its regional and social varieties in Bangladesh and even outside of Bangladesh. Let us now study the diverse manifestations and varieties of language below. So we have talked about language, so no need to talk about again about language. So now the dialect. So dialect, here the focus topic is dialect, so we have to talk about dialect. Okay, so dialect, what is dialect? What is dialect? You know that a regional or temporal or social variety within a single language is a dialect. It differs in pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary from the standard language, which is in itself a socially favored dialect. So, a dialect is a variation of language sufficiently different to be considered a separate entity within a language, but not different enough to be classed as a separate language. So, dialect is a variety of language. So this is variety of language. So a language can have several dialects, whereas a dialect is often associated with a particular accent. However, from the linguistic standpoint, all dialects are of equal prestige, and it is found that gaining status, a dialect becomes the standard variety of standard language of a country. You know that dialects are of two major types. So dialects are major two types. What is? So number one is socio-dialect and number two is regional dialect. So now let's have a look on socio-dialect and regional dialect. A social dialect or socio-dialect is spoken by the people of a specific society. It can have its own distinctive accent, vocabulary, grammar, and so on. For example, the language of the lower class, the language of the higher class. Okay, so this is a social dialect, and which varies society to society, lower class to higher class. So in the second fruit, regional dialect, a regional dialect is spoken by the inhabitants of a particular region, territory, or geographical area. It is again different from other dialects by its own accent, vocabulary, grammar, and the like. For example, the dialect of Mymensingh, the dialect of Dhaka, the dialect of Dinajpur, the dialect of Noakhali. So it varies from place to place. This is called regional dialect. Okay. So now register. You know that the term register, I have to whiten this. This is darkened. So, okay. So register, you know that register. The term register is widely used in sociolinguistics to refer to varieties of language according to use. In other words, a register is a speech variety used by a particular group of people, usually sharing the same occupation or profession. For example, doctors, lawyers, businessmen, engineers, etc. are the same interest. For example, stamp collection, cricket fans, etc. Thus, it is characterized by major distinctions of spoken, written, language in action, or language in reflection. So if we talk about, according to Halliday, register differences are at least three-dimensional. Number one, field, number two, mode, and number three, tenor. So field means being concerned with the purpose and subject matter of communication. Mode referring to the means by which communications occur. And tenor depending on the relations between participants. So now, idiolect. If we talk idiolect is a variety of language used by one individual speaker, including peculiarities of pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, etc. A dialect is made of idiolects of a group of speakers in a social or regional subdivision of a speech community. So this is idiolect. I mean, it depends on individual. So regional dialect, already I have told it. So now this is about isogloss. So what is isogloss? Yeah, this is very important. What is isogloss? I know that we have many isogloss and Diclusia. So okay, so isogloss. What is isogloss? You know that again, some researchers who study the distribution of social dialect based on the geographical areas are called dialect geographers. The dialect geographers study the elements of dialect found in a particular area. For example, they notice the accent of is different in place like Rajshahi and Kustia. So as ash like this. So they make a boundary line between two social dialects. This is called isogloss or dialect map. Isogloss is a kind of mapping which marks different regional varieties. Isogloss shows us the different pronunciation of R in New York and in London. You know that R and R. So now prestige. What is prestige? You know that prestige, we always call that you have a prestige, I have a prestige, everybody has prestige. So what type of prestige is this? A prestige in sociolinguistics is not entirely equal to standard. In fact, any language variety may be standard or non-standard, can have prestige among its speakers. Sociolinguistics makes a distinction between overt prestige and covert prestige to denote the degree of overall social acceptance of a speech variety in general. A language or dialect associated with the upper class has positive prestige, while a language or dialect associated with the lower class has negative prestige. Prestige in sociolinguistics is especially visible in situations where two or more distinct languages are in use, usually in which there are likely to be speakers of different languages or dialects who interact frequently. So this is prestige. And now what we call Pidgin. So Pidgin, the Pidgin seems to have had its origin and in the inability of the 19th century Chinese to articulate the word business. It came out as Bizion or Bizin. And since it is a short step from B to P, it finally flattened out as Pidgin. A Pidgin is a new language which develops in situations where speakers of different languages need to communicate but not possess and or share a common language. In other words, a Pidgin, or for example, talk Pidgin, is found to be a variety of language which develops as a contact language when groups of people who speak different languages come into contact and communicate with one another. This variety is created for a very practical and immediate purposes of communication between people who otherwise would have no common language whatsoever. So this is Pidgin. Crayol, when a Pidgin language becomes the native language or mother tongue of a specific group of people and is used for all or many of their daily communicative needs, it is labeled a Crayol. In this connection, Hudson holds a Pidgin which has achieved a native speaker is called a Crayol language or Crayol. Likewise, Crayol or Crayol. Likewise, Crystal maintains that a Crayol is a term used in sociolinguistics to refer to Pidgin language which has become the mother tongue of a speech community, as in the case in Jamaica, Haiti, Dominica, and in several other ex-colonial parts of the world. Though having a community of native speaker, Pidgin turns into a Crayol. Usually the sentence structures and vocabulary range of a Crayol are far more complex than those of Pidgin language. So Crayol are classified according to the language from which most of their vocabulary comes, for example, English-based, French-based, and the like. So Diclusia, we know that Diclusia, the term Diclusia introduced by Ferguson, okay, so refers to a situation in which two very different varieties of language occur throughout a speech community, each with a distinctive range of social functions. Both the varieties are standardized to some extent and felt to be alternative by the native speaker and have their social names. Sociolinguistics or sociolinguists usually talk about them in terms of high or A variety and low L variety. The former is learned in school and used in church, mosque and parliament, law courts, government affairs, press and electronic media, whereas the latter is used at home or among family and friends of the same dialect area in relatively more informal settings. However, Diclusia is apparently not limited to any geographical region or language family, for example, Tamil, Chinese, and so on. So this is Diclusia. And bilingualism. The term bilingualism simply refers to using or being able to use two languages, especially with equal or nearly equal competency and fluency, where okay, the practice of alternately two languages will be called bilingualism. Okay, two lingualism, and persons involved bilingual. Similarly, McAway defines bilingualism as the alternate use of two or more languages by the same individual. So this is bilingualism. And we have code switching. Code switching refers to a change by a speaker from one language or language variety to another. This is of course is the automatic consequences of the existence of registers, since the same speaker necessarily uses different registers on different occasions. Code switching can take place in a conversation with one speaker uses one language. So now we have borrowing, and this is finally borrowing. Borrowing, you have got in your first year writing skills text. So again, the term borrowing, the borrowing is used in a comparative and historical linguistics to refer to act of taking of our linguistic forms by one language or dialect from another. In sociolinguistics, a way in which different varieties may become mixed up with each other is through the process of borrowing. So dear students, now we have another questions that what is the relationship between language and society? We know that there is a close tie or connection between these two terms, language and society. Language is used in the society, and society can use language, and society can communicate their feelings and share their views, news, and inner emotion, affection, and everything through using language. So language performs various functions in the society, and the society does the same way. If one will not exist, the other one will be affected. Language is the primary tool or communication purposes for establishing peace and order in our society, for showing authority and power, and for attaining goals and objectives. So dear students, you just will read out or go through Munir sir's text on Introduction to Linguistics to get all the answer of this and get the broad discussion on language and society. So another term is that we have language and society and language and culture. So dear students, you know that language and culture, what is the relation between language and culture? Language and culture are intertwined. A particular language usually points out a specific group of people. Okay, so when you interact with another language, it means that you are also interacting with the culture that speaks the language. You cannot understand one's culture without accessing its language directly. So language can help you to share others' culture, to help you to be informed about others' culture, other society. So language and culture has a close connection between these. So dear students, please go through about the language, the definition and distinctions of language and cultures, language and society in your text. So if I have much time or more time, I will discuss it. So inshallah, we'll talk about having another topic in future. And already I have conducted 2 classes on psycholinguistics and sociolinguistics. Dear students, no more today, and stay safe, stay home. And we know that we are passing very hard time, pandemic situation, loss of more lives, more people. So inshallah, no more now and no more today. Allah Hafiz and bye bye.